watch anime for the hype, the fantasy, the laughs, and romance, but sometimes all that feel-good stuff just isn't enough. Sometimes you want to feel bad. Just have a good long cry and let it all out, you know? But some of those sometimes you just don't have time for that long of a cry. Maybe classes are really starting to pile on, or you're juggling 2 jobs. Whatever the case, you've got to make the most of your weekend by having the most efficient emotional breakdown possible. This week, I got you covered, because this video contains 10 of the most traumatic experiences you can get from an anime in 13 episodes or less. Each one guaranteed to turn you into a sobbing wreck or your money back. And hey, if you ever need a pick-me-up after one of these bring-you-downs, today's sponsor, Isekai Slow Life, is here to help. Every weeb wishes they could be reborn as a random fantasy thingamabob surrounded by sexy elves and catgirls and stuff, and Isekai Slow Life lets you finally live that fantasy. The thingamabob in question is an adorable little mushroom guy, or girl, that finds itself elected mayor of a quaint little village after using its magic mushroom juice to help out some local businesses, opening up some light, relaxing town sim gameplay with fun additions like a cute little fishing minigame. As your town grows and you venture out on quests, complete with cute little visual novel cutscenes, you'll bring in more and more fantasy cuties with their own stories to tell, all of whom you can take on dates and eventually add to your ever-growing family. Starting April 7th, you'll even be able to recruit characters from That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime as part of their big new collab event, which also includes a new storyline, new gameplay, and new gift packs and achievements to unlock. To get your fill of cozy fantasy vibes, just click the link below or scan this here QR code to start your Isekai Slow Life today. And when you do, don't forget to use the gift code MUSHRUM to get 10 free draws plus a pack of bonus items. In stark contrast to that though, my first recommendation of the day is one of the least relaxing isekai in existence, where most isekai protagonists are given epic quests for the fate of the whole RPG-like world to ignore while an endless parade of waifus takes turns bouncing on their the poor teens at the heart of Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash are faced with an infinitely simpler, yet infinitely more difficult task: surviving. Finding themselves stranded in a strange land with no memory of who they are or how they got there and nothing to their names, these strangers plucked from across Japan have no choice but to join up as raw recruits in Grimgar's reserve army, sent out to battle monsters that threaten the peace of their new homeland on a daily basis, trading hard-won trophies for basic room and board. And of these displaced souls, we follow a squad of the dregs and stragglers, a healer, a hunter, a wizard, a warrior, a thief, and a knight who together struggle to fight the most basic of monsters, learning quickly, the hard way, that even the scrawniest goblins are just as scrappy and desperate to live as they are. Between battles, they enjoy whatever slices they can of that hard-won life, always fleeting and precious and often overshadowed by the trauma of the last fight and the pressure of the inevitable next one. We get to know them as they come to know themselves and each other, rediscovering and redefining who they were before and what drives them now, all the while knowing that at any moment, any one of their journeys could be brought to an abrupt end. And you can probably guess from its presence in this video that one eventually does. Grimgar fills its heartbreakingly beautiful watercolor world with complex and compelling characters, using our attachment to them to devastating effect. It's a poignant tale about processing grief and overcoming adversity that asks potent questions about how our past defines us and we, in turn, define our future. Unfortunately, this too short first and only season only gives the faintest glimpse of what future awaits these unlikely heroes in the epic saga of the light novels, but the story it tells does work perfectly well as a self-contained arc. That said, if you've absolutely positively got to get closure from your depressing portal fantasies, there is a fantastic original isekai that I also can't recommend enough. Long before ReZero proved that auto-saving checkpoints are the worst cheat power ever, and Grimgar demonstrated they're still better than the alternative, Now and Then Here and There was doing the dark fantasy subversion thing way back in 1999, doing for the likes of Digimon and Monster Rancher what those shows do for the modern SAO-esque stat screen fest. The hook is brilliant brilliantly elegant. You take your typical incurably optimistic power of hope and friendship dipstick, here named Shu Matsutani, and send him off to another world, as was the style at the time, but instead of verdant landscapes and friendly collectible combat critters, all he finds waiting for him on the other side is despair, drought, and dozens upon dozens of child soldiers pressed into the service of an increasingly paranoid megalomaniac. That's not to say the world he ends up in isn't beautiful. This is one of the most gorgeous examples of traditional cell animation ever broadcast. Whether they're falling over Tokyo or the desolate desert wastes, I don't know if I've ever seen more striking sunsets in anime. But they're the deep, lingering sort of sunsets that cast long shadows and throw the horrors of the world into harsh relief. Now and then, here and there, is one of those anime that beats you down and never really lets up, piling psychological abuse, torture, sexual violence, and every war crime in the book on its young hero and his friends with each successive episode. It's so much, it leaves you numb more often than it gets the waterworks going, at least until the dam bursts at the very end, which can make it difficult to watch, especially if you yourself or the world you live in are going through it at the moment. But if you can stomach it, seeing how Shu clings on to hope and fights to smile even in the face of overwhelming adversity is powerfully inspiring and cathartic. But if you're looking for an adventure that'll lift your spirits rather than crush them, even as it's turning your face holes into faucets, we've got an original anime for that too. Few anime make my heart soar quite like Sora Yori mo Toi Basho, A Place Further Than the Universe in English, or Yorimoi to its friends, is a show about three cute girls with vibrantly contrasting personalities whose obvious destiny of uniting as a light music band or tea ceremony club or whatever is diverted by the fourth one, Shirase's unshakable dream of exploring Antarctica, hoping to follow in the footsteps of her scientist mother who disappeared long ago on an expedition down south. You don't need to know that this anime's in this video to see where that storyline's going, but even though you will see it coming, you will not be ready when that moment hits. And there are plenty moments leading up to it that'll also have you blubbering like a penguin as the demure Shiraishi, incurably outgoing Hinata, and anxiously upbeat Mari each struggle to overcome their own challenges so they can be there for their friend when she needs them most. But more than that, and more than just about any other anime I've watched, especially at this length, Yorimoi has an incredible ability to wring out tears of awe and joy at the beauty of the world we live in, the power of the bonds that carry us through it, the siren song of adventure and discovery that drives us to venture out and find those precious things, and the raw human spirit to overcome any obstacle in our way and any naysayer lying behind us. This anime makes my heart soar in a way that nothing else out there has ever really matched, besides going out there with people I love and having an adventure of our own. Out of all the anime I'm gonna recommend today, this one might be the most likely to legitimately change your life, except maybe for Anohana, depending on when you watch it. Mari Okada's masterful meditation on grief, depression, and survivor's guilt has helped me through some of the toughest moments in my own life, and if I had to single out any one piece of media that's responsible for my low-key addiction to ugly crying, this would be it. If you haven't seen it yet, I've got a whole video essay on why you need to change that on my second channel, because it got copyright claim to hell on this one. But to give you the short version, Anohana, very short for Anohimita Hana no namae o boku tachi wa mada shiranai, or We Still Don't Remember the Name of the Flower We Saw That Day, is the story of 6 steadfast childhood friends, the self-proclaimed super peacebusters, whose happy-go-lucky lives in the Japanese countryside were forever changed when Menma, the happy-go-luckiest of them all, died in a tragic accident, leaving the other 5 to drift apart, each one privately tortured by feelings of guilt, anger, self-doubt, jealousy, and most painful of all, love, that they now have no hope of ever resolving, or so they think, until their former leader, Jintan, transformed by trauma from an outgoing ball of energy and charisma into a surly, truant gamer shut-in, is visited by Menma's ghost one hazy summer day. Or maybe it's just a heat-induced hallucination. He really can't be sure, since he's the only one who can see her, and he's certainly not in the most stable mental state. But real or not, she gives him the gentle push he needs to go out and reconnect with his former friends, so they can all travel down the painful path to healing together. Personalities clash, repressed memories resurface, and long-held secrets come spilling out across 11 episodes of immaculately crafted drama as the group hurtles toward one of the most explosively emotional climaxes of anything you'll ever see. Again, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a can't-miss masterpiece. If you have, I'd also recommend Mari Okada's movie Makia, or if you've seen both of those and you're itching for another thing about a white-haired girl with not a lot of time left, then you might also like my next recommendation. If you measure the worth of a downer anime in terms of pure tears per minute, then Plastic Memories might just be the most devastating entry on this list. The last two and several other arguably deliver much harder gut punches, but the premise and plot structure of Pla Memo are designed to absolutely batter you with emotional blows from all angles. The setup is brilliant for this sort of thing. It's the future, and humanity has developed thinking humanoid robots called Giftia to help us in our daily life. People use them as personal assistants, companions, and even replacements for lost loved ones, as they're as capable of feeling as thinking, but their sentience has a strict shelf life: 81,920 hours, or about 9 years and 4 months. Past that storage limit, their memories and personalities begin to rapidly degrade, leading to erratic behavior, mental distress, and in extreme cases, full-blown iRobot shit. And the only way to prevent this is with a full factory reset. Of course, lots of people aren't exactly keen to effectively lobotomize family members they've known and loved for nearly a decade, but that's where Terminal Services comes in. A division of Giftia manufacturer Cycorp, tasked with convincing more reticent customers to allow this scheduled maintenance, and when that fails, with tracking down the resulting rogue robots. All of their operatives work in pairs: one Giftia to deal with any potential Terminator shenanigans, plus one human to keep them in line. Tsukasa is their latest human employee, a Nepo baby whose dad lands him the job after he fails his college entrance exams, and who finds himself swiftly partnered with department veteran Isla, an adorably clumsy mechanical moe blob with an impressive gift for connecting with people. Each episode sees the pair embroiled in a different depressing short story, precision engineered to have you bawling your eyes out in 23 minutes or less. Some might call it emotionally manipulative. I call it efficient. And while those episodic plots are busy pummeling you in the feels, it gradually winds up a hell of a haymaker with the ongoing story of Tsukasa and Isla's growing feelings for each other in the face of her rapidly impending expiration date. Plastic Memories explores a softer, more optimistic side of sci-fi than the cyberpunk dystopias typical of anime, yet uses that to build a surprisingly compelling and personal tragedy. I probably don't have to say what that last sentence was a segue to, just like I probably don't even have to tell you to watch Cyberpunk Edgerunners in the first place. It is front and center in this video's thumbnail for a reason, unless A/B testing said that something else worked better, but I really doubt that anything's about to outperform the David Stare, an image that near instantly became synonymous with fictional trauma after Netflix released Studio Trigger's hauntingly beautiful tie-in anime for CD Projekt Red's mega-budget, mega-city sandbox adaptation of Mike Pondsmith's classic tabletop RPG. But if somehow you missed the hype train and all the memes, and you still have no idea why everyone at the Anime Con rave started sobbing when that one slow dance song came on, don't let all those layers of corpo licensing fool you. This show is a straight-up masterpiece and the frontrunner for the greatest video game adaptation ever made in any medium. Now, based on the game in question, plus prior works from the studio and director Hiroyuki Imaishi, you might come in expecting a balls-to-the-wall power fantasy action extravaganza full of dead cops and corporate goons, big explosions, and big bigger boobs, and you will absolutely get that as you follow ex-honor student David Martinez's fall over the edge into the underbelly of Night City, and his techno time dilation-powered rise back up into the pantheon of cyberpunk legends, alongside his literal and euphemistic partner in crime Lucy and all her punk friends. Well, most of the boobs are modestly sized by anime and Imaishi standards, but they are still there. However, throughout his battles against fellow mercs and megacorporate Goliaths alike, you'll also be met with a profound sense of loss, time and again, as you bear witness to a fascinating and visceral treatise on how love can hold us together in the face of brutal systems that seek to break us down into compliant pulp. In other words, you're gonna cry. A lot. And even though it's just 8 episodes long, you might want to spread those out across your weekend or even an entire week just to give yourself time to process it all. But of course, that runtime is also a bit of a lie, since once you're done watching, you will be itching to jump into the 100+ hour long game to try out all the badass weapons and cyber mods you saw in the show, and ultimately write your own epic, bittersweet tragedy on the neon-drenched streets of Night City. So let me give you another Netflix rec that'll actually take just one weekend to finish. This one, steampunk rather than cyberpunk. Violet Evergarden is similar in structure to Plastic Memories, actually, a work-life tale about a job that naturally sets up a series of potently poignant short stories, culminating in a grand emotional climax for the protagonist, who helped all those other characters through those stories. But I'd argue the setup and execution is considerably more elegant. Our titular heroine, Violet, is an emotionless steampunk combat cyborg raised to kill in a world at war, then left adrift in peacetime. Struggling to process the loss of her commander, the only man who ever cared for her and the only one she cared for in turn, as well as to understand the true meaning of his last words, "I love you." Trying to find a place in a world that no longer needs her, she settles in as a mail sorter at a private post office, only to discover by sheer chance the exact opposite of her calling. Auto memory dolls. Typists tasked with transcribing the words hidden in the hearts of their clients, with putting concisely to paper the thoughts and feelings we all struggle to express. The exact wrong job for a girl with no emotions. But perhaps, Violet thinks, by connecting with others and listening to their hearts, she might begin to hear her own. Violet Evergarden might just be Kyoto Animation's single saddest and most beautiful anime. And if you don't understand what a monumental statement that is, you should watch it as soon as possible. Plus, Hibike Euphonium, K-On!, Tamako Market, just all of their stuff is great. Of course, like with Edgerunners, a lot of you out there don't need to be told that, but if you're looking for something that scratches a similar itch with a similar level of skill, you should also check out Vivy Fluorite Song, the Terminator-esque tale of an unpopular AI amusement park attraction named Vivy on a century-long quest to learn what it truly means to sing from the heart, so her voice might one day bring joy to the world. Also, she's got to avert the robot apocalypse. That bit's pretty important too. Although, since every AI is programmed with a single all-encompassing purpose that defines their entire existence, and Vivy's happens to be singing, you can expect at least one heartstring-tugging idol number for every heart-pounding cyberpunk action scene. And the show handles both expertly. Aided by Matsumoto, an advanced AI sent back 100 years to inhabit the body of an adorable teddy bear, Vivy must navigate and intervene in key turning points throughout the next century of human-AI relations that ultimately culminate in T-Day, which, as you might expect from the Violet Evergarden comparison, take the form of tragic and melancholic character-driven stories centered on profound philosophical questions of what it means to be human and what our hearts really are, which will wring their fair share of tears out of you, while the overarching story primes you to cry a whole lot more. It's a very effective structure. There's a reason 3 different anime in this video employ it, and if Plastic Memories' use of it's around here and Violet Evergarden's way up here, then Vivy is right there under it. If you'd prefer a sad anime about a slightly more plausible apocalypse, relatively speaking, I've got one more Netflix original for you, Japan Sinks 2020. So named because it's a modern reimagining of the 70s disaster novel Japan Sinks, which tells the story of Japan, well, sinking. This new version follows a half-Japanese family as they struggle to survive a series of off-the-scale earthquakes set to plunge the entire archipelago into the Pacific. Their journey to escape takes them out of the big city and into the countryside, up and down mountains, and even through the compound of a pot-smoking cult, painting along the way a gorgeously cinematic, satirical picture of the nation's complicated, fractured identity. As Hafu, the Muto siblings are in a unique position to see the worst and best aspects of Japanese culture, even as it falls apart all around them, and it will eventually fall to them and the other survivors to rebuild what's left in an act of kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing pottery with gold lacquer to make something new and ultimately more beautiful than the original. Japan Sinks is almost certainly the most controversial anime on this list, and not just because co-directors Masaki Yuasa and Ho Pyung-gang get very political with all of that. It packs a lot of tragedy into 10 short episodes and never really gives any one sudden, brutal death time to breathe or the survivors time to grieve. Like now and then, here and there, it is brutal in an exhausting way that doesn't really ever let up, frequently denying you the catharsis of a good cry. But that's very intentional, reflecting the way that people have to numb themselves and keep moving forward if they want to survive in the face of such overwhelming death and destruction until they're finally safe enough for the dam to break. And when it does, man, it hits hard. The story also takes some decidedly strange turns, with an outright surreal midsection that'll leave you wondering whether you should be laughing or crying, and a thoroughly cinematic show-don't-tell approach to storytelling that does very little to hold your hand through any of that, which can make it a very rewarding watch or a very frustrating one, depending on how much of yourself you give to it and how much you with that weird shit. This is not a second screen sort of show, and even if you do commit to it, you may end up loving or hating it. But either way, I can promise you one thing: you will not come away bored. If you want more of a sure thing though, or just a less weird earthquake story, I also heartily recommend the more down-to-earth Tokyo Magnitude 8.0. A chillingly realistic, low sci-fi tale of a young girl named Mirai and her brother Yuki's harrowing journey to get back home through a near-future Tokyo that's been rocked to its foundations by the inevitable Big One. What should be a short trip, Odaiba to Setagaya, a 43-minute drive, hour-long train ride, or 4-hour walk, is transformed into a harrowing multi-day survival odyssey by crumbling infrastructure, reshaped roads, conflict with other desperate survivors, and the ever-present threat of aftershocks. Okay, to be clear, it was near future in 2009. The show's set in 2012, and the robot rescue drones it speculates about are already a reality in 2025, even if they don't look exactly like that. But that doesn't make it any less believable. Studio Bones extensively researched prior earthquakes around the world and interviewed survivors to paint as accurate a picture as possible of life in this sort of disaster zone, and to accurately simulate the physical impact of the disaster itself, which is pretty spooky to watch, living here 16 years into the 30-year projected window for the Big One hitting Kanto that inspired this anime to begin with. But that's not what makes this show so award-winningly heart-wrenching. Tokyo Magnitude 8.0's story will hit close to home no matter how close it is to your actual home, thanks to its rich, grounded characters. Two believably bratty young siblings thrown in way over their heads in a sink-or-swim situation that forces them to grow up fast. Faster, perhaps, than is actually possible for them, even with the help of Mari, the kind, cool surrogate older sister figure who joins them on their journey while trying to reach her own child and mother in the neighboring borough. Tensions ratchet up with each step forward and each passing episode as the stress of the situation frays at each survivor's nerves, and the closer they get to home, the larger the possibility looms that one or more of them won't make it. The disaster itself may be tied to specifics of geography, but the believable human drama at the heart of this disaster story is the sort that could happen anywhere. But of course, I'll leave you to discover for yourself how it all shakes out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna just go.